My English teacher made us sign contracts promising total silence, then punished me with detention for quietly helping a kid in the middle of a panic attack as she sat grading papers. I was in science class when I reached for what I assumed was my granola bar. One bite told me everything was off. That flavor, peanut butter, my friend's protein bar must have slipped into my bag when we studied together. Can you imagine being trapped, slowly dying, while the very person meant to protect you smiles, deadbolts the door, and then tells you it's all in your head? That day in that classroom, my life shattered, and it all began with a single horrifying sentence. I need the emergency EpiPen. My throat was already seizing up, a burning constriction making every breath a desperate fight. Peanuts. I had just eaten peanuts. The substitute teacher, Miss Blade, barely glanced up from her own bag of trail mix. "Don't be dramatic," she scoffed, her voice dripping with disdain. "Allergies are all in your head." My heart hammered against my ribs. "No, you don't understand." My tongue felt thick, a foreign object in my mouth, already swelling. I'd forgotten my EpiPen at home, foolishly thinking I'd be safe because, surely, every classroom had emergency ones. "Please, the med cabinet." I choked out, my voice barely a whisper. She stood up, slowly, deliberately, and walked towards the cabinet, a flicker of hope. But instead of opening it, she leaned against it, a chilling smirk playing on her lips. "You know what my parents did when I claimed I was allergic to cats," she said, her eyes glinting with a disturbing pride. "They locked me in a room with 3 of them. By morning, I was cured." Katie, bless her heart, knew. She leapt from her desk, her face pale. "She's not faking. She needs help now." But Miss Blade blocked her, a wall of cruel indifference. The only thing killing her is her own mind. And then she did something that will forever be burned into my memory. She walked to the door, slid the deadbolt shut with a sickening click, and pocketed the key. "No one leaves until she admits she's faking it," she announced, her gaze sweeping across our terrified faces. "This victim mentality is destroying your generation." Panic erupted. "Call 911, someone screamed, fumbling for their phone. "Phone's in the box now." Miss Blade snarled, grabbing the collection box. "Or you're all suspended." My throat felt like someone was tightening a belt around it, slowly, inexorably. 6 minutes. That's all I had. 6 agonizing minutes before the swelling became irreversible, a number my doctor had made me memorize, a death sentence counting down in my head. That's when Daniel, my ex, decided to chime in. She pulled the same drama last year. Miss Blade's smile widened, a truly evil sight. "See, even he knows you're faking." She walked back to my desk, her bag of peanuts in hand. "My parents proved allergies are psychological when I was 5. She grabbed a handful, and with a horrifying, deliberate slowness, crushed them over my desk. "Exposure therapy," she whispered, the dust falling everywhere. "This is for your own good." My nose started bleeding. My lips puffed out, distorting my face. Katie screamed, "Look at her!" Miss Blade shoved Katie back down. Psychosomatic reaction. She believes she's dying, so her body mimics it. And then, unbelievably, Tommy touched his neck. His eyes, already red-rimmed, started swelling shut. "I can't see. I can't see." The classroom plunged into chaos. Kids were dumping backpacks, throwing contents everywhere, a desperate search. "Does anyone have an EpiPen?" Sarah was sobbing beside me, using her shirt to wipe the blood from my nose. "Please don't die. Please don't die." Jack was at the door, yanking on the handle. "Open this right now, please." Miss Blade just laughed. "Sit down or you're expelled." Jack kept yanking, the whole door frame rattling. "Help somebody." Other kids joined him, pounding on the door, fists thudding against the window. Mr. Peterson, from next door, looked in. For a split second, hope flared. Then Miss Blade stepped in front of the window, blocked his view, gave him a dismissive thumbs up, and closed the blind. He walked away. "This is kidnapping." Katie shrieked. My vision blurred. 3 minutes left. Blood dripped from my nose onto my desk. Tommy was clawing at his throat. Lisa was in the corner, vomiting from pure terror. 2 girls huddled together, crying. Some kids were frozen at their desks, unable to move, unable to process the horror unfolding. Miss Blade actually cackled. Oscar-worthy performance, though a bit over the top with the fake blood. My situationship, Jack, was trying to give me mouth-to-mouth while I was still conscious and choking. Daniel, in a moment of utter madness, tackled him. "I know her better." Jack shot back. "Yeah, that's why you called her dramatic." Miss Blade just ate another peanut, her eyes gleaming. "Look at this. Fighting over the attention seeker. This is exactly what you wanted." My body was betraying me. I could feel myself turning blue. Foam bubbled at the corners of my mouth. Katie, in a surge of adrenaline, grabbed a chair and smashed it into the med cabinet. Miss Blade lunged, grabbing her wrist. Destruction of property. That's expulsion. Mike tackled Miss Blade from behind. "You want to go to jail for assault? I'll press charges on all of you." I tried to stand, but my legs buckled. My only thought, a desperate, fading beacon, was the fire extinguisher on the wall. I literally had to crawl on all fours, dragging my weakening body across the floor. "Look at her performance," Miss Blade cackled, now restrained by Mike and Katie, crawling for sympathy. My body didn't feel like mine anymore. 1 second, I was raising the fire extinguisher, aiming for the door. The next, I was covering my face, shielding my eyes from the shattering glass. Crash! The door window exploded inwards. Miss Blade spun around. "Vandalism. You're going to prison." My arm sliced on the broken wire as I fumbled for the deadbolt. "Stop her!" Miss Blade screamed, but Mike and Katie held her back. The lock clicked. The door flew open. I collapsed in the hallway, just as other teachers came running. "Call 911!" someone shrieked. From inside the classroom, Miss Blade was still yelling, "They're all faking. This is mass hysteria." The paramedics worked on me right there in the hallway. They told my parents later I was clinically dead for 3 minutes. More ambulances arrived. Miss Blade was fired, of course, and blacklisted from every school in the area. But that wasn't the end. Not by a long shot. 2 weeks later, we were back in class, still reeling. Our teacher broke the news. Tommy, after receiving his diagnosis of permanent partial blindness, had taken his own life. All thanks to Miss Blade. That's when it hit me. Getting fired? That wasn't enough. We had to destroy her. The words hung heavy in the air. Everyone sat frozen. Katie's hand found mine under the table, squeezing so hard my knuckles cracked. Her eyes were red, puffy, but something else was there too. Something hard and angry. The bell rang. Kids shuffled out, but we stayed. When the room emptied, Katie leaned close. Getting Miss Blade fired isn't even close to enough. I nodded, my throat too tight to speak. After class, I went straight to my follow-up appointment. The doctor ran a scope down my throat, showing me pictures of the scarring. My airways were permanently narrowed by 15%. He made me practice with my new EpiPen, stabbing it into an orange over and over until I got the motion right. 3 times he watched me before signing my discharge papers. Walking through the school hallway the next day, I saw Mr. Peterson. His face went white. He turned, practically running into an empty classroom. My fists clenched so tight my nails dug into my palms. He saw me dying through that window, and he just walked away. That night, my phone buzzed. A text from Katie. She was making a group chat with everyone from that classroom. Sarah joined first, then Mike, then Jack. Even Lisa, who'd thrown up, joined. We needed to get our stories straight for what was coming. My mom drove me to the police station the next morning. The officer made me repeat the part about the locked door. He wrote down every detail of that 6-minute timeline. 2 hours I sat in that uncomfortable plastic chair, going over it again and again. He asked if I had any proof besides witness statements. Tommy's funeral was 3 days later in the school gym. Half our science class showed up, the other half stayed away. His mom stood at the front, clutching his school photo, sobbing. After everyone left, I walked up to his display. I touched his picture. "Miss Blade," I whispered, "will truly pay for this." By Monday, the whole school was talking, but not the way we expected. Some kids were saying it was mass hysteria, that we overreacted. At lunch, a girl from another class said Tommy was just being dramatic about his blindness. I threw my tray in the trash and left before I did something stupid. Jack found me after school, looking uncomfortable. He kept apologizing for trying to give me mouth to mouth. I panicked, he said. I didn't know what else to do. I told him it was okay, even though the memory of his mouth on mine while I was choking still made my skin crawl. That night, Daniel sent a rambling Instagram message. He was sorry, but not really sorry. He claimed he was trying to keep everyone calm, said he still knew me better than anyone, and was just trying to help. I blocked him after reading his last line about talking in person. The school nurse called me down the next day to go over their new allergy action plan. New EpiPen stations were installed in locked boxes throughout the building. Each one needed a special key, she explained, giving me a laminated card with locations marked. But the keys? Only in the main office. Unbelievable. That afternoon, an email from the school district buzzed on my phone. Important update regarding recent incident. 3 sentences. Miss Blade terminated. Banned from working in any school due to an incident involving student safety protocols. No mention of me dying for 3 minutes. No mention of Tommy. My mom, reading over my shoulder, threw her phone across the room. Around 7 p.m., Katie showed up with a huge notebook and a folder full of papers. She spread everything on my kitchen table. "We need to write down every single thing we remember," she said, "and every symptom you're still having. If we're going to destroy Miss Blade, we need evidence for more than just her getting fired." My hand still shook sometimes. I got dizzy when I stood up too fast. Katie, with her neat handwriting, wrote it all down. The next morning, the school called. Principal Barfield wanted to meet with my mom and me. Immediately, we drove there. He sat behind his desk, hands folded, looking serious. He started talking about handling this carefully, not making it public, not causing unnecessary drama for the school. My mom stood up so fast her chair fell backward. "Unnecessary drama?" she asked, her voice trembling with rage. "You think watching her daughter die for 3 minutes was unnecessary drama?" He actually had the nerve to say the school had taken appropriate action, and we should move forward. 2 days later, Detective Darren Budrow called. He'd been assigned to investigate potential criminal charges against Miss Blade, child endangerment, false imprisonment. He came over that afternoon, recorder in hand, and took my statement for almost 2 hours. When I told him about the locked door, he stopped writing. He looked up, his expression grim. "That changes everything legally," he said. "That's false imprisonment on top of everything else." That night, trying to do homework, I couldn't breathe. I felt like I was back on that classroom floor, crawling, my throat closing up. I grabbed a notebook and started writing down every single detail. The taste of peanut butter, the sticky warmth of blood dripping from my nose, the cold tiles under my hands. I had to get it out of my head before it drove me crazy. Katie organized a meeting at her house. Everyone from the classroom who wanted to help. We sat in her basement making a plan. "Destroying Miss Blade," she declared, "means 3 things. Criminal charges to put her in jail, civil lawsuits to take all her money, and making sure everyone, everywhere, knows exactly what she did so she can never hurt another kid." Mike researched similar cases. Sarah collected medical records. Everyone had a job. My mom found a lawyer, Ray Bellamy, who specialized in school negligence cases. His office was downtown, filled with awards. He explained we needed to prove the school knew, or should have known, Miss Blade was dangerous. That meant her employment records, complaints from other schools. The discovery process, he said, will let us request all her files. That's when we'll find out if there were warning signs the school ignored. I started seeing a therapist, Emmett Bloom, twice a week. Panic attacks every time I smelled peanut butter or heard a door lock. He taught me breathing exercises. Count to 4 breathing in, hold for 4, breathe out for 4. It helped a little. He told me what I went through was real trauma, and my anger was justified. I shouldn't feel bad about wanting justice. A week later, Gordon B.S. from the district's legal department scheduled interviews. He pulled us out of class one by one. It was obvious he was trying to protect the school. He kept asking leading questions. Did we misunderstand Miss Blade? Was she just trying to teach us a lesson about being prepared? He actually asked Katie if Miss Blade might have been planning to open the cabinet after making her point. Katie just stared at him. Miss Blade watched her turn blue and foam at the mouth. What point was she trying to make exactly? Meanwhile, a local reporter, Jasper Beckwith, started calling everyone, trying to get our side of the story. Katie thought we should talk to him. Our lawyer, Ray, said to wait. Reporters could twist things, make victims look bad. 2 days later, I was in Ray Bellamy's office, signing a stack of papers. He explained each one, pointing to sections about witness statements and the locked door. His assistant made copies. The retainer agreement was more than my family could afford, but he said we'd work out a payment plan after the case settled. My mom's hand shook when she signed. Ray's walls were covered in clippings about cases he'd won. I counted 12 involving schools. He said having 15 witnesses made our case stronger than most. The school announced Tommy's vigil 3 days later. We all walked to the football field. Kids took turns at the microphone, talking about what a good friend he was. When a sophomore mentioned Tommy spent his last week scared about losing more of his sight, I had to walk away. My chest tightened so much I couldn't breathe. I ended up throwing up behind the bleachers while everyone else lit candles. Daniel followed me. He started saying he never meant to hurt me. I turned around. Calling me dramatic while I was dying is something I'll never forgive. He just stood there, mouth agape, as I walked away. Ray called that afternoon. He'd filed official records requests with the district for Miss Blade's training certificates and any emails about the incident. They had 30 days to respond, but he warned they'd probably claim documents were missing. Gordon B.S. scheduled another interview with me for next week, and Ray insisted on being there. Gordon kept trying to make it sound like Miss Blade was just one bad teacher, not asking about the locked cabinet or Mr. Peterson. I made sure to mention both things 3 times. Gordon typed notes, avoiding eye contact. Jasper Beckwith was still interviewing students. Katie said he'd talked to 5 kids, separately. He showed her a timeline he was building, proving how many chances adults had to stop this. Katie said he looked really upset when she described Tommy crying about going blind. Detective Budrow called. The DA was looking at charging Miss Blade with false imprisonment and reckless child endangerment. Having 2 students with severe reactions and Tommy's death, he said, makes the case much stronger. My next therapy session with Emmett focused on my anger. He helped me see that destroying Miss Blade wasn't the real goal, but stopping her from ever hurting another kid was. It felt better thinking about it that way, even if the rage still burned in my stomach every night. Ray tried to get the hallway security footage of Mr. Peterson walking away. The school said it was under legal hold. Ray actually smiled. Good, he said. Now they can't delete it or claim the cameras weren't working. The next morning, he sent official preservation letters to the district and the substitute teacher agency, certified mail, legally requiring them to keep all documents about Miss Blade. Companies sometimes lose important papers right before trials, he explained, but now they'd face criminal charges if anything disappeared. That same week, the local paper ran an op-ed that made my blood boil. The writer called our situation a moral panic, said Miss Blade was a victim of helicopter parents. Allergies were overblown, they wrote. Teachers shouldn't have to deal with every little medical complaint. The online comments were a war zone. Some shared allergy horror stories, saying Miss Blade belonged in jail. Others called us drama queens looking for attention and a payday. My mom spent hours screenshotting the worst comments. My dad paced the kitchen, reading them aloud. Katie's parents had to change their phone number after someone posted it online. The records request Ray filed finally came back. 2 previous complaints against Miss Blade. No one knew. 3 years ago, she wouldn't let a diabetic kid check his blood sugar, calling him dramatic. He passed out, hitting his head. Last year, at a middle school, she refused to let a girl use her inhaler during an asthma attack. The parents pulled her out, filed a complaint, but nothing happened. Ray copied everything. Our pile of evidence grew. Then things got worse. Some idiot from our class posted on social media that Miss Blade was trying to kill us for insurance money. Totally made up, but it went viral. Suddenly, we looked like crazy conspiracy theorists. Katie made them take it down, but the damage was done. News outlets called us the students who cried wolf. Ray had to issue a statement. 2 days later, thick envelopes from Miss Blade's lawyer arrived at all our houses. Cease and desist letters, threatening to sue us for defamation, saying we were ruining her reputation, causing emotional distress with our false allegations. My parents freaked out. Ray called an emergency meeting. It was an intimidation tactic, he explained, to shut us up, but we still had to be careful. No more social media posts, no talking to reporters without him, and definitely no wild theories about insurance money. We got organized. A shared Google Drive for all our evidence. Mike scanned documents. Sarah handled medical records. Katie organized witness statements. I worked on the timeline. Seeing it all organized made it feel more real, less like a nightmare. School was getting harder. My panic attacks were uncontrollable. In chemistry, someone opened a bag of trail mix with nuts, and I completely lost it. My throat closed up, even though I hadn't eaten anything. The teacher had to call the nurse, who implemented my new emergency exit plan. I could leave any class without permission if I felt triggered. It was so embarrassing. Everyone watching me run out, gasping for air. The nurse gave me a paper bag, called my mom. I missed the rest of the day. The next week was the school board meeting we'd been preparing for. Katie had written a 3-page statement. She'd practiced it over and over. But when she got to the microphone, they told her she only had 3 minutes. She tried to read faster. They cut her off mid-sentence when the timer went off. Parents in the audience started yelling, "Cover up!" A mom stood up, shouting her kid had nightmares. Security guards moved in. The board president threatened to clear the room. 3 parents were escorted out, including Katie's dad, who was filming everything. The board said they'd take our concerns under advisement, meaning they weren't going to do anything. We walked out crushed. Then we heard from the DA's office. Not good news. They were still waiting for final medical reports before deciding on charges. The prosecutor warned it could take months. And even if they charged Miss Blade, she might get a plea deal. Cases like this were hard to prove, they said, because she could claim she didn't know how serious allergies were. My dad slammed his phone down so hard the screen cracked. We all felt like the system was failing us. Tommy died for nothing. But then Jasper got an interesting email, a glimmer of hope. Someone who worked with Miss Blade at a summer camp 10 years ago reached out. This person said Miss Blade used to brag about her parents curing her cat allergy by locking her in a room with cats. She'd tell this story to anyone who mentioned allergies, saying that's how all allergies should be handled. The email had dates and names of other counselors. Jasper forwarded it to Ray. This proved her dangerous beliefs went back years. She knew exactly what she was doing. Ray used all this evidence to officially file our civil lawsuit against Miss Blade and the school district. Damages for medical costs, trauma, and Tommy's death. His parents joined as plaintiffs. The paperwork was over 100 pages thick, every detail spelled out. Reading it, I realized how serious this was, how much our lives had changed because of one substitute teacher who thought she knew better than doctors. 2 days later, Katie texted me a link that made me throw my phone across the room. Miss Blade had posted a 20-minute video on YouTube, calling herself the real victim, claiming we were all lying. She sat there crying fake tears, saying she never meant to hurt anyone, that cancel culture was destroying her life. The comments, full of people saying kids these days are too soft, that she was scapegoated for a tragic accident nobody could have prevented. I spent the next 3 hours throwing up while my mom held my hair back. The district called an emergency meeting that Friday. They offered us early settlements with non-disclosure agreements attached. Paperwork thick with legal terms. They wanted to pay us to shut up. Some parents were already signing, needing money for medical bills. My mom looked at the check amount, and I could see her doing the math about my hospital bills. Other parents yelled, calling it blood money. The district was trying to sweep it under the rug. Katie's dad ripped up his offer right there. The room split into 2 groups, arguing. The district lawyers just sat there, taking notes. That's when Ray, our lawyer, dropped a folder on the table. It shut everyone up. Training records. Miss Blade had skipped the mandatory module on recognizing anaphylaxis 3 years ago. She'd claimed equivalent training from a previous job, but nobody ever checked. The superintendent's face went white. Ray had also found emails where administrators ignored warnings about her behavior. One teacher wrote that Miss Blade seemed to enjoy having power over students too much. Another email mentioned weird comments about allergies being made up by pharmaceutical companies. The district lawyers whispered. They asked for a recess. We sat there for 2 hours while they panicked in another room. Mr. Peterson showed up at my house that weekend, asking to talk. He sat on our porch steps, couldn't even look me in the eye. He admitted he'd seen us through the window that day. Miss Blade's thumbs up, he said, made him think everything was fine. He trusted her because she was a teacher. His hands shook as he explained how he'd been having nightmares about Tommy. Couldn't stop thinking about what would have happened if he'd just opened the door. I told him his guilt didn't undo his choice to walk away when kids were screaming for help. He left crying. I didn't feel bad for him at all. The district announced new policies the next week. All classroom doors unlocked during instruction. Emergency EpiPens in bright red. Unlocked boxes in every room. Principal Barfield held an assembly explaining the new rules, avoiding any mention of why they were suddenly necessary. It felt like such a small victory, considering what it took. Kids were still having panic attacks in that classroom, even after new desks and fresh paint. Jack started coming over after school to help me prepare for depositions. We'd sit at my kitchen table, him asking practice questions, me trying to answer without crying or getting too angry. He was patient. We figured out boundaries for our complicated relationship, agreeing to focus on the case. His presence helped more than I expected. That lasted until Daniel betrayed everyone. He leaked our private group chat screenshots to some blogger defending Miss Blade online. He'd edited them to make himself look reasonable, and the rest of us look like we were exaggerating. The messages spread. People called us crisis actors, saying we were ruining an innocent woman's life. Our group kicked Daniel out immediately. His reputation at school tanked. Kids knocked his books out of his hands. Teachers looked at him with disgust. During my next therapy session, Emmett and I worked through my urge to personally confront Miss Blade. I'd been dreaming about showing up at her house, making her understand. Emmett helped me see that channeling everything through legal channels was safer, and would accomplish more than any confrontation. The temptation to do something reckless faded, but never completely went away, especially when I'd wake up gasping from nightmares. Jasper Beckwith's full investigation finally published a long article with our real names after we gave permission. Months he spent piecing together every detail, including Tommy's declining vision and the note his parents found. Public opinion shifted dramatically when people read the timeline of Tommy losing his sight bit by bit, choosing to end things rather than live in darkness. Miss Blade's video, crying about being the real victim while Tommy's parents joined a lawsuit? Someone give her a gold medal for Olympic-level mental gymnastics. The article went viral, millions of shares. Even celebrities posted about it. Miss Blade supporters mostly went quiet, except for a few conspiracy theorists. That's when Ray found the smoking gun. Records showed Miss Blade had done something similar 5 years ago at a school 3 districts over. She'd locked students in during a tornado drill, claiming she was teaching discipline. One kid had a panic attack, passed out. The school quietly let her resign to avoid scandal. They'd pass the problem to us by giving her neutral references. The other district's HR person admitted in a deposition that they just wanted her gone. 2 days after that deposition dropped, Miss Blade supporters found us online. My phone blew up with messages calling me a liar. Katie got death threats on Instagram. Ray made us screenshot everything, told us not to respond. The messages kept coming for weeks. You destroyed an innocent teacher's life. Tommy killed himself because he was weak. I blocked over 40 accounts, but new ones kept popping up. 3 weeks later, I sat in a conference room for my deposition. Miss Blade's lawyer grilled me for 4 straight hours. Same questions, different ways, trying to get me to contradict myself, to admit I was being dramatic. I stuck to the facts, describing crawling across the floor, the blood dripping from my nose, my throat closing up. Miss Blade sat across from me the whole time. When I described crawling, her face went white. Her lawyer had to call a recess. The DA called 2 months later. They were filing criminal charges. Miss Blade was arraigned on 2 counts of reckless child endangerment and 1 count of false imprisonment. She showed up in a gray suit, trying to look professional, but they still put her in handcuffs after she pleaded not guilty. Bail was set at $50,000, and she posted it that same day. But seeing her in cuffs, it felt like the first real victory. The district's lawyers came to us with a bigger settlement offer. It would cover all our medical bills, plus therapy for 5 years. The number was huge, but it came with an NDA that would stop us from talking about what happened, except for policy stuff. Katie and I spent 3 days going back and forth with them, adding language that would let us speak at schools about allergy safety, advocate for better training. They kept saying no, until we threatened to reject the whole thing and go to trial. The lawyers caved. They added the carve-out we wanted, plus money for a foundation in Tommy's name. The school held a mandatory assembly the next week, a moment of silence for Tommy. Half the kids were on their phones. Some whispered about us being dramatic. One kid actually said out loud that Tommy was probably depressed anyway. I walked out, throwing up in the bathroom, while Katie stayed and recorded the whole thing. The State Board of Education met the following month. They voted unanimously to revoke Miss Blade's teaching certificate permanently. It went into the public records database. She couldn't even teach at private schools or tutor kids. That's when she filed her wrongful termination lawsuit, claiming they made her a scapegoat. Her filing called us manipulative children who orchestrated a performance to get attention and destroy her career. I found it online at 2 a.m. Read the whole thing. Every page, painting herself as the victim, us as scheming brats. Emmett found me crying on my bedroom floor at 4 a.m. He took my laptop away, made me promise to stop reading anything about the case. He set up blockers on my devices, helped me find a therapist who specialized in trauma from authority figures. We met with the lawyers one last time to sign the settlement papers, with all our changes included. The money would cover everything medical, therapy for years. And we could still speak about what happened as long as we focused on safety reforms, not attacking the district directly. It wasn't perfect justice. Nothing could bring Tommy back. But at least we got something real. Something we fought for and won. Katie pulled out her laptop that night, typing up a mission statement. Sarah made a list of every school board meeting in the state. Jack designed a logo with Tommy's initials inside a medical cross. I started writing down everything we wanted to change about emergency protocols in schools. We filed the paperwork to make Tommy's Law an official nonprofit the next week. Set up social media accounts that got thousands of followers within days. Our first school board meeting was 3 towns over. We drove there in Sarah's mom's minivan, a box of flyers, our hearts pounding. I stood at that podium and told them about watching Tommy's eyes swell shut while our teacher ate peanuts and laughed. Katie showed them the video someone had recorded before Miss Blade took their phone. Sarah read statistics about how many kids die from allergic reactions in schools every year. Jack presented our proposal for mandatory unlocked medical cabinets and quarterly emergency training for all staff. The board voted yes right there. Parents were crying in the audience. We hit 12 more districts that month. Every single one passed our safety reforms. Local news picked up the story. Suddenly, we were getting calls from schools in other states asking how to implement Tommy's Law. We spoke at a national education conference where I had to leave the stage twice to use my inhaler because talking about it still made my chest tight. Sarah's mom drove us everywhere, made sandwiches for the car rides, never complained about gas money. Katie kept a spreadsheet of every school that adopted our protocols. By month 3, we had over 200. Jack got us meetings with state legislators who started drafting actual laws requiring allergy training. I testified at the state capitol, my EpiPen in my pocket, my hands shaking the whole time. 6 months have passed. Now I check every single food label twice before eating anything. I carry 3 EpiPens in different pockets. My therapist says the nightmares about blue lips and foam will fade eventually, but I still wake up gasping sometimes. Miss Blade's trial starts next month. The prosecutor says we have a solid case for criminal negligence and false imprisonment. Tommy's parents sent us a letter thanking us for everything we did. But his mom couldn't stop crying at his memorial service last week. The rage isn't drowning me anymore, but it's still there when I see peanut butter in stores or hear teachers complaining about overprotective parents. We couldn't bring Tommy back, but we made damn sure Miss Blade will never have the power to hurt another kid again. This whole journey, this fight for justice, it's reshaped everything. If you've ever faced something so overwhelmingly unfair, something that made you question everything you believed about how the world works, I really want to hear your story. What would you have done in our place? Drop a comment below. I'm genuinely curious to know your thoughts.